Hello, I'm wearing my Barbados hat right now. This is Barbados Cricket Club. Hopefully you can see. And I'm listening to Britney Spears and Will I Am, and it's a loop, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on. But it's very good. It just keeps going, but I've turned it off. Okay, so the lecture tonight is about why the ascended masters such as Sananda and the people that channel them, who I call perhaps they're not really defenders, but they're, the ones that, well, there's a word like defender, I can't think of it right now. It was apologist. An apologist for Sananda, the supposed ascended master, who consistently on this channel, we have questioned whether they are actually an ascended master or just an evil spirit pretending to be something, given the fact that this Sananda says that it was Jesus the Christ in one of its lifetimes. Okay, so continuing on with this theme, we've been looking at the Ascension Glossary on the internet, which is a very interesting website. I don't have it handy for you right now. But in this website, they talk about the law of one, which on YouTube we hear here and there. And this is supposedly what the advanced beings in supposed higher dimensions, I think they could very well be just astral beings, just astral. No one knows lower astral, middle, or high, but astral beings, and a lot of them try and pretend that they're so high up in the dimensions, that they've got a bird's eye view of what's going on here. Chiron is one that I have called out in the past as being incredibly egoic. People will flock to Chiron and hear all this magnetic service bullshit. And time and again, we don't see anything happening with Chiron on the ground. It's all woo-woo. Come and listen to me for an hour and get... you don't learn anything from Chiron. I'm sorry. There's nothing but endless, this wonderful thing and that wonderful thing's going to happen. And it never happens. So anyway, moving along. Okay, so when I used to see a trance channel who channeled Sananda, even today, when I send my video lectures about how we question whether Sananda is actually a benevolent being or just a wolf in sheep's clothing, this one, the channeler, constantly is an apologist for Sananda. And some of the things that he says have to do with laws of non-interference. So when I'm on this Ascension Glossary page, it seems like these laws of non-interference are, well, I have to make some jumps because I've been also studying Admiralty law, which is law of the seas, and it is very brutal law. It is basically buyer beware kind of laws. In other words, if I sell you garbage and I don't warn you about it, it's not my issue. You bought it, and whatever you get is what you get. It's basically that kind of a thing. So this is what I relate to this kind of idea of laws of non-interference by these so-called beings in other dimensions. They consistently seem to be using this idea. Now, one idea is that mind control, you give your consent by being mean to other humans. And the mind control can be technological, or it could be psionic. In other words, some beings that have got some super telepathy that they can use. Like, a good example would be Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, where he was able to tell the guards, the Empire guards, that that move along, that we were no concern to you. And he just sort of implanted it in their brain. And sure enough, they said that, and then they let Luke and Obi-Wan continue. So that kind of a mind trick. So getting back to this point, if humans are mean to another human, perhaps they're in a pyramid structure in a corporation, and they're a boss, and they know that they have to have profit as the bottom line. So being a part of this organization where you're basically ordering your subordinates that we have to make money and do whatever you have to do to make the sale, that vibration would allow, for example, this is kooky for some of you, but maybe an alien race. I do a character called Pindar, who is a reptilian Draco from Orion. So it would allow a reptilian like Pindar to mind control you, not because he's made an agreement with you, but because you have used the corporate pyramid where you're the superior to the subordinates and have used this, you have to make the sale at any cost vibration. He matches that vibration, and he basically can use it to mind control you. And you don't even know about these reptilian extraterrestrials. So when I look at that, I say, well, this is a brutal, brutal way of looking at things. This is, there is no contract between the reptilian, Draco, and the person working in the corporation. The person in the corporation has no clue about this kind of so-called consent. But according to these extraterrestrials, the person in the corporation has given consent to other beings to do the same thing to them. And these beings might not even be on the planet. They could be in another dimension of the star system, but they've got advanced technologies so that they can watch you and influence you. I find this appalling. And if this is what the law of one is, that these so-called benevolent beings are, and I don't think they're benevolent, Ashtar Command and some of these Nordic aliens that pretend to be wonderful, I don't think they are at all. I think that they are demonic, and they are wolves in sheep clothing, and there are so many people that channel these and think that they're wonderful beings. No, they're not. If they are operating from a law of one that is basically concealing the rules that they are operating under, and they are using these rules to influence you and our human world, these are our enemies. So I'm telling you right now, Nordic aliens, reptilian Dracos, and anyone else who is promulgating law of one, stay the hell away from them. Stay the hell away from them. Now, on Earth, we are far more advanced than that. This Admiralty law thing that still seems to be around, and there's some really oddball things, between the Vatican, Washington, D.C., but the thing I wanted to mention is courts of equity. Courts of equity were invented hundreds of years ago, where if this old-fashioned Admiralty law kind of thing, brutal Roman law, wasn't fair, you could go into a court of equity and say, look, this is not fair. I mean, this is really not fair. And the court of equity would hear your case, and you could go there. So humans knew that this old barbaric form of law was not fair. While these extraterrestrials are using the same barbaric ancient Roman law, brutal force, and, buyer beware, whatever you get, well, you bought it, you own it, and too bad, and there's no consumer protection. So if you're law of one person and you've been studying this, I'm warning you, this stuff has got all kind of catches in it, and, they're saying that you're consenting to all kinds of their rules that you don't even know about it, just by virtue of you being a human and on a planet where it's beyond your control. If corporations run the planet, and they do, And if you want to eat and earn a livelihood, you have to be part of the system. So it's a catch-22. You cannot avoid it. I suppose if you saved up enough money to buy a piece of land and you didn't use Monsanto's GMO seeds, and so that you could save some seed from season to season. I mean, it is unbelievable the level of control that these corporations have on us humans. So it's law of the jungle, and anyone saying, that this is consent to be governed by extraterrestrials because of their kooky law of one, no, it makes no sense to me, and I'm a human, so I'm telling you, if they're saying this is a better system, no, it's not. It's not. These aliens are not benevolent. They're demonic, and you have been warned. So there you go. So who are our allies? Well, as I said in a previous video, good-hearted people, good-hearted humans are our best allies. I'm kind of disappointed because I was hoping that there were extraterrestrials that were benevolent and advanced. And if there are, I haven't heard from them. And in a huge, huge galaxy and a huge, huge universe, multiverse, if a lowly human like me, and I'm not the one that invented courts of equity. These were invented before. I just learned about them, when I was actually in business school when I learned about this kind of law. So, don't look to me as being an expert on this, but I'm saying that humanity has looked at this stuff, and and we do have, in a lot of different forms of government, we do have certain kinds of consumer protection laws. So it's far more advanced than what this law of one stuff is. So if you're into law of one and you think that it's wonderful, I'm giving you some warnings. They are using this, and they're using it to say that you have given consent to them to do all kinds of shit that you never consented to. So there were some people who were on some of these groups that had said we don't need these aliens, and I must apologize to these ones because at the time I was thinking that some of these extraterrestrials were benevolent, and the more deep I get into it, I realize that I was incorrect. And you have to do an incredible amount of research and listen to an incredible amount of videos and read different websites to try and glean what they are all about. So, good-hearted humans are basically your allies, and as for these other ones, beware, 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 and beware of the humans who are in servitude to these ones. That's quite a long lecture. I have to decide who I am, because I usually post one of my cosmic characters as being the one who is talking through this body-mind complex. Usually I use Harry Weaver. Weaver is like the narrator. He's weaving you a tale. But because this is kind of informational, well, there's quite a few that give informations like this one. If I was talking in a French-Canadian accent, like Tabactarian, perhaps Tabactarian, but I'm not speaking with that Kapuskasing accent. Yes, there's quite a few. Tyler Mackey quite often talks about social issues. Kyler Killar talks a lot about curiosities, and Robert Anton Wilson, oddball things, Bermuda Triangles, and things like that. And some of my cosmic characters, like Sippy Cup. Sippy Cup is, well, everyone knows what a Sippy Cup is. One of my cosmic characters is named Sippy Cup, and he's the one that tells me it's time to have a drink, keeps me well hydrated, And he's considered our chief of staff. For all of us, not for me in particular. That's very complicated. Maybe another lecture we'll talk about the organizational chart of our cosmic characters. Hope you've enjoyed our lecture.